and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and today we're talking with Jack Schurman, the DP of the new Kelly Clarkson music video, I Would Have Loved You. Jack is also an amazing DP and director who shot, commercials for BMW and beer companies, and I believe he won an Emmy for a short he filmed, so excellent cinematographer. Excellent filmmaker. We had a great talk. I think he's a younger guy, so he and I had similar sort of upbringings, as it were. Him working more in not action sports. I was more action sports when I was working at Red Bull. He was doing rafting, like whitewater rafting type stuff, which is cool. It was really interesting to hear how he was able to transfer that skill set, filming that to his narrative and commercial work and music video work and stuff, which is neato. So, we had a great talk, like I said, and I think you're really going to enjoy this one. So I'm going to shut up and then immediately start talking when this music ends. So, have a good listen. To start, how did you get into cinematography? Have you always been into like photography and images, or was it something you happened into, or what? How'd that come about?
Actually, came kind of backwards. I do more photography now, but I never did. It's not like a lot of my friends are cinematographers, came from photography first. I just came from really just filmmaking, wanting to make movies, and always made them, as a kid growing up, and sort of did all the jobs with my brothers and stuff. And then when I started working in them, and I also my dad had a whitewater rafting company, so like kind of kayak down and like film the rafts coming down. I was a video boater, it's called. So I'd film the rafts coming down and then get out halfway up the river and like go back and edit the videos and then show them when they get back. And then in the winter, there'd be no raft trips, so me and my brothers would have all the video equipment from like the raft company during the year. So we just make tons of little movies. So we do kind of everything. But then when I started working them and trying to figure out a job, it's sort of just like what I was good at, interest in, and could, get the most work at, and then just kind of really liked it. And, had more of a knack for it and patience. I like being on set, so, it's good to, the energy, and just kind of every day is different, going tons of places and seeing lots of things. So I think all those elements kind of got me into it. And then I just, just grew to like, just love the craft and just want to kind of spend at least a portion of my life and time thinking, kind of developing that and seeing how good I can get by when I'm 70.
Well, you look at people like Deakins and he's like saying how small cameras are getting and he's fine. And I'm like, that's true. He doesn't have to operate. Like he can just sit there and do the thing. Totally, so you didn't go to like film school or anything? What was your like sort of educational path? Just working on the videography side of it? Yeah,
I did go. I went to Vancouver Film School.
Oh, word.
For 1 year. Yeah. And then also, that was another place where like kind of, I think they did like better. I don't know. It seemed more well-versed. We had great cinematography teachers, and, that was kind of the main reason I went there is they had, 16 mil film, and, I was, at home making videos on high 8 and 8 millimeter and VHS tapes, like deck to deck. And I've been wanting to shoot film, I was like 18, just dying to shoot film, and there was nowhere I could really do that. It's probably 2002, 2003. And that was the place, of the schools I was looking at, like my grades weren't great, so it wasn't like tons of options. So that was a place where they're like, you can shoot film. So that was kind of why I chose it. But then, I think that was a place I really kind of gravitated towards cinematography also.
Did you have any mentors there? Because that's something that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. In cinematography, kind of everyone was pretty good. I wish I could think of our teacher, Ricky. I can't think of his last name. He was great. But this one guy, Ken Hegan, was a big one. He was our writing teacher. I still keep in touch with him, just as a buddy, this 12, 13 years later. I really liked him, and he kind of just if you were interested, would be like, there's cool screenings of, whatever weird movie you're into, like this is going on, and was always just great that way. So I'd say he was probably the most lasting influence.
For sure. So what how did you initially gravitate directly into music videos, or was there kind of an intermediary path, or
No, I mean most of my career I've been doing documentaries, both directing and cinematography. I've always, shot narrative shorts and music videos. My brother's a musician. His name's Luke Rathborn. So, we've been shooting music videos together forever. And then, other friends of mine who are musicians, I kind of do their music videos or shoot them, whatever. And then sort of just picked up from there. But most of my work up till like probably the last year or two, I've started kind of shifting out of it more, but it's been documentary. And now I've kind of been going more towards narrative and music video, just for the change. I've been doing documentary for like 15 years mostly.
really? What is there like a specific sort of story that you tend to gravitate towards, or was it just like shooting a lot of kind of whatever comes?
I'd say directing there probably is. Like directing seems to be most of the projects I do. Um, it's not really conscious, but I definitely say they end up being, stories of, that's a good question. A lot of people that are sort of, unique in the culture and society they're living in, and, and cultivate sort of a community around themselves and interests and identity and personality. And, so I guess I wouldn't say loners necessarily, because that's not always true. Sometimes people really, uh, you know, uh, have pretty deep social networks, but definitely maybe a little bit outsiders. And then for cinematography, all over the place. Sort of whatever's the most interesting, which is what I like, or whatever makes the most sense. But that's what I love, about documentary most, is just the places you go, the people you see and meet, and like the sort of breadth of like life experience. I don't think there's any other job where you can do that. And specifically as a cinematographer, it's really great, doing both. What I love about being a cinematographer is you don't have to, on documentaries, um, you don't have to maintain subject relationships as carefully, or as, that's not the right term, but it's like you don't have to have a you don't have to make your day in a certain sense of, like storytelling or anything. So you can kind of really drink up like environments and experiences and characters in a way that's like, I actually find harder directing, because you're kind of always part of your head's trying to make a story and figure out where it's going and like get enough to, cut with.
Right.
Um, so you kind of get this looser thing, and you're also not that person asking the questions, to the subject. So you kind of get this sort of very unique experience to it. And it could be anywhere, I've been all over because of it, all over the world, and it's been great.
Was there anything from the whitewater rafting that style of cinematography, whatever that was, the action sports sort of cinematography, that you carried over into documentary? Any lessons you learned from that helped you?
I'd say packing efficiently, for sure. Packing efficiently and protecting your gear. Um, yeah, and then I guess resourcefulness, definitely. And I think that extends really into documentary. I find like in like narrative, music video, commercial, like the thing that is the most beneficial. Probably the two things are like finding a shot like in the moment, that sort of cam mopping end, and then the other one is just just ingenuity when everything's broken, and you have there's no chance of reshooting or pickups. That's just not going to happen, and you have to figure out the best way to cover whatever you have, the best, most interesting way, like on the spot in a flash. And there's 100% not going to be any way to get it back, and like that kind of ingenuity I think is essential. And that's or it's just, it just always pays off, no matter what the size of budget or scale of production. It's just a really helpful thing. And definitely like that kind of whitewater stuff definitely kind of taught that early. But I mean, my friends who I grew up doing it with, they're all incredible. Like they can just like fly, go to Colombia and fly drones like through like jungle trees like down in the rivers. Like there's such crazy cable cam operators and like drone pilots, and they do lots of commercials. Like just doing that now, it's really cool. And I don't. If I had to do that, I'd just hire one of them. Like, but they're really great. Drone
Totally.
ops, and it's just the stakes are so high. When they're putting anything in there, and it's also a matter of getting that equipment into some of the most remote places in the world a lot of times.
Yeah. Is there like any equipment, because we'd all love to pack every lens we have, every piece of diffusion, whatever. What is the like piece of equipment that you wish you could take with you that you can't? And what is probably the most overvalued piece of equipment that you think probably no one really needs, but everyone wants?
Yeah, I'd say like things that I wish I could take and can't is usually like, you know, lenses that are a little too novelty for whatever needs to be done, just like too many lens options, like just for fun. I'd say that probably gets scratched when it's, tight pack inner travel. And then
Not to interrupt you, but is there a focal length or a lens that you've really found pretty good for the utilitarian nature of that shoot?
it depends, like it really depends. Like it would depend so much on the shoot, like in narrative or music video, probably the limitations of lenses would just be to, maintain a look or sort of set restrictions just for, creative purposes, rather than logistics. In documentaries where I find like you got to like really, or like really figure that stuff out. So I don't know what what lens length I'd certainly have or not have would probably depend on the shoot. But I
But
mean,
it'd
if I
likely
was
be
on
like
a
a
doc,
zoom.
yeah,
Yeah.
generically looking at it, I'd probably have a range of zooms, to cover myself. And if it was something else, uh, I shot this a little bit on this Apple show, and it was all primes, that's a cool thing that's been going on in documentary shooting, shooting all primes, and no zooms, and that's definitely fun. Like it's just, if that's you're gonna have a lot less coverage, so you're spending more time on less shots, which is great, and really fun if you can do it, and it's sort of a architectural house building show, so you got, it's not, you're not catching action on the fly and running around, so much of it depends on the subject matter and the story. And I'd say the same in narrative, if it was like if it was a sort of film where you were shooting like, I don't know, like if you were shooting long lens, multi-camera, chop it up and editing, it'd be very different, than something else. So yeah, it's hard to say. I don't think I really have any like sort of blanket rules or anything I try to follow. It really just depends on what seems interesting or makes sense, for whatever's going on.
Yeah. And so, sorry, I did interrupt you though.
That was
And
a terrible
most
answer, dude.
hyped.
That made no sense. Sorry.
No, it works out.
Just
Because
rambling.
some people definitely like for a long time. I exclusively shot between 18 and 35, and that was it. And on my own stuff, it was that Sigma that everyone loves so much, which held a look to everything. But that lens is so neutral that I could goof with it in post or put a filter on it or something if I needed to. But pretty much every documentarian we've had on the podcast, except for maybe two of them, have all did all their projects on like one or two primes.
Oh, really? Cool. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know any project that I've done on doc anyway that I've done on that few lenses. Trying to think. Be cool though. I think it'd be a fun challenge, for the right project, where you could, obviously it's a dangerous thing to do, if it's gonna make it so you can't capture the story, but if it lends itself to it, the time and space to make it work that way, it's such a fun, it's like a good restraint, to kind of force creativity in other areas, and force you to kind of find things you might not otherwise. I like that kind of challenge.
Yeah, and I think a prime too makes it so that you focus more on composition and less about like getting the shot. Like with a zoom, I don't think there's no sharpening. That doesn't make any sense. There's no like honed in focus. You can be very willy nilly with it. That's why I like shorter zooms, because it's only like, oh, I can't stand any farther back. I'll just give myself an extra little bit, versus like a 24 to 200, you know, stand wherever you want, composition,
Yeah.
fuck it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's nice too, to like, those kind of restrictions are great to set. I do feel like not necessarily like there's anything like overall that I really like longer lenses or wider lenses or prods or zooms, but definitely like go through kind of phases, and it sort of seems serendipitous. It's either, the projects I choose to do, or, I feel like I've been very wary in the past of like, I've been shooting like, pretty wide lens close-ups lately, and like I'm kind of bored of that. Like maybe I'm going to go on like much longer lenses for this next project and shoot everything like, one lens longer than I normally would, or like everything that would be a 50s now an 85. And then I kind of worry like, oh, is that, you're doing that just because of boredom or switching it up, and is it like merited and driven by the material? But then I find like it pretty much always like works out, because whatever it is, the serendipity of like project and interest and like wherever you're at, like it's sort of often like lends itself to it, like whatever style I'm like looking to shoot in at the moment, somehow a project comes that's like in that realm, even if it's a little different, it'll scratch that itch.
Well,
So,
and if you think of it like a painter, a painter probably makes, using a friend of mine as an example, like he'll have a series basically. Like he works out this one idea that he's got for a few months, and then you're never going to see that again because he like got it out. And I think it could be the same thing with lens choice. It can be the same thing with compositional choices, support choices. Like certainly new tools and gear and stuff can spur that on, but I think techniques definitely can get stale, and then you just don't feel as engaged, and you can make anything work generally.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so crucial for me anyway to have, those places to switch. Like I can't imagine ever, doing doing something where it's that you're kind of just locked into like one show for like 20 years or something, and you just got to do the same thing over and over. I mean, I could definitely do it. It'd be cool, it's worse jobs for sure, but like it wouldn't be ideal for me. I think, I really like the changing in subject matter, changes in style approach. Like I think it's just crucial too, because it always, and like you were saying, your friend who's a painter, like whatever shifting styles you might be working in anything, it all, like everything always feeds each other in ways you can never expect. Whatever techniques you develop in one realm of filming or anything, whether it's just like cinematography style or subject matter or doc versus narrative, like everything just feeds everything else so much. Yeah, and in ways you just never expect, and then I always find like circling around to things like, that you were into when you were first getting into your first work and figuring it out, and then you kind of circle back and then just have all these new insights into like when to use a technique or how to use it, or like how to subvert it or use it in an unexpected scenario.
Yeah, it's all like a toolkit, because definitely you don't grow by remaining stagnant, obviously. So yeah, you might think a technique or whatever is old, but then there's always a project that's like, we want something that looks like this, and you're like, I did a shit ton of that like 2 years ago.
Totally. Yeah. Just dive down the Vimeo hole, find some old work for sure. I mean, it helps in that way too, just getting work. And yeah, that's definitely true.
Did you? Oh, so the tail end of the question about lenses was, what piece of equipment do you think is like, we don't need this?
Oh man, what is it? Don't need drone, probably. Although it depends. Sometimes you really do. But and now they're getting so small and great. I don't know. Yeah, I'd say maybe that. I feel like there's something that's always bulky and annoying. Probably the thing I end up ditching the most that I want to take and end up being expendable on hard trips is a matte box. I'd say probably on dock trips.
Do you use cameras with a lot of, or I guess you don't use a lot of cameras with built-in ND?
Yeah, a fair. Well, I mean, it depends. Lately, I've been shooting. Well, the Alexa Mini LF, been shooting that for a bit. That's got it. But yeah, Red Gemini. I shot a doc, feature doc, or a couple feature docs on Red Gemini with Blackmagic 4K and 6K as B cams and gimbal cams, and none of those had internal NDs, which is a super pain in a doc, especially. But I think in anything, that's a big bonus for me for sure. But yeah, so I kind of get around it using in a situation like that, like either a matte box or screw-on NDs with magnets, like little magnet,
Oh, interesting.
So I'll have like a pouch on my lens belt, like a little filter pouch, and like step them all up to 82 millimeter, or like all my screw-on filters are 82 millimeter, and just step all the lenses up to that, and then just kind of swap NDs with a magnet on the front of them to whatever's needed, and just have a couple filter belts like that. So that's kind of how I get around no internal NDs on like when I'm shooting doc, on cameras that on like more cine cameras that don't have them. It's not ideal.
Yeah. With the LF, are you noticing a specific difference in the full format or is it kind of just like, do you think it's more of a fad?
Sorry, you cut out. What was that?
Oh, with using the LF versus other traditional Super 35 cameras, are you noticing like a large difference between full format capture, or is it kind of just like a fad, or maybe only incrementally quote unquote better? Like, are you seeing any difference there?
Gotcha. It was still cutting out for some reason, but I think you were saying, do I think a large format is a fad over Super 35, or will it stick around as an option? I think it'll stick around as an option. I think it's like, to me, it's like kind of overblown. I can't think of like I've been loving. I really like that camera a lot. The LF's really cool and it shoots beautifully. And like I'd say probably my favorite, just blanket setup, whatever, just for beautiful images would be, the LF with K35s. Is amazing, and I love shooting that. If there's a budget for it, that's like just such a great image, and I love like just like doing subtle filtration on that, and then it's just I feel like it could span so many different looks I'd want to go for, and that's awesome. And you get I love some elements of the field of view increase. The depth of field obviously can be more of a pain in the ass than it can be a help sometimes, but like it can also be really cool. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely think I don't see why it would go away. I mean, I think the biggest problem or biggest pain is it limits your lens options, aside from that, I think a lot of the other constraints are overblown, I think it's great. I can't imagine it won't stick around, for a different look and the advantages it does provide.
Well, for me, it was, I took a real, because I'm a giant nerd, I took a real like objective look because I have a C500 and I did a test against that and the Venice and the LF and the FX9. And the only thing I noticed was like it's higher detail. Like you get more information regardless of like kind of what it's saving to, because the grain is smaller, you've got better perceptual contrast and stuff, which is good. But I do tend to rally against people who are like, not individuals, I try not to, but just this idea that like, oh, there's a large format look. It's if that look is like clean, then yeah, maybe, or like detailed, smooth.
I totally agree. I think that's gonna be like it's overblown. Like, I mean, it's certainly side by side. Like it's more, the practical limitations, that like as consideration, like whatever look you're going for in Super 35 or LF, it's not gonna, I don't know. It's you can pretty much get there either way,
But the lens choice is definitely an issue. I have a set of Nikkor Primes,
which cool,
the K35s are definitely like super popular right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm really bummed because they're so hard to red, like TLS K35s like are always poked out, and like I love those. Yeah, those are awesome lenses.
Well, and on top of that, the FDs on eBay are
Yeah,
like $1,000 a pop now.
crazy.
And it
So
started to
crazy.
leak into the Nikkors. Like now Nikkors are like $250, $300, $400, $500
Yeah, yeah.
per
I
lens.
got
And it's like, there's a million of these things. What are you people doing?
totally, yeah. My neighbor's got a set of Leica R's that I use a lot also.
Those are really
Um,
nice.
yeah, they're great. I love them, and they're like I just keep seeing them like go like up in value. Like and those are still a lot of them, like a lot of them around. But yeah, it's crazy. The vintage glass, it's like sports trading cards. It's like crazy market right now. I don't even. Yeah, it's like I love K35s, but like only so much. Like
Yeah.
there's a price point where it's like let's get like props and stuff and wardrobe instead. Like I
There,
can't focus a whole budget, for whatever.
there's I've been doing a lot of looking into Eric Messerschmitt's cinematography for
Mm-hmm.
reasons. And and one thing that I'm starting to really come to realize, at least with like David Fincher's style of filmmaking, is it's not about perfection. It's about like getting a clean signal in like audio
Right,
terms. So the lenses have to be like zero character. They're shooting the highest resolution possible, not because they're going to do anything crazy, but just for the super sampling so you don't get any noise.
right, right, right,
Um,
right. Yeah.
and so I'm like, you really can't, like I was doing some tests and you really can like fake a lot of the lensiness in post pretty
Mhm.
easily now,
For
you
sure,
know?
yeah. Um, I feel like that's like something that kind of, that also like sometimes comes down to like a practicality of like that, like how technically difficult shots will be and like how much the resources, like how much crew and equipment resources will have. I feel like that's a balance of like whether to use vintage lenses that might be more difficult, to achieve like a character and look, or whether to, pick sharper, more consistent glass and filter it. Like I really like. I never go too crazy. Like I use like a lot of glimmer glass and black pearl mist. And beyond that, just be uh, more like one-off things. But I use those two a lot.
The glimmer
You know,
glasses are starting to pop up a lot. Like
yeah, yeah, I love glimmer glass. It's awesome.
Tobias mentioned it for Ma Rainey. He used a glimmer glass and all that.
No way,
I
cool.
think, yeah, and he was shocked. I had heard about it. I was like, I've got one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, I
Well, they
think
started making like screw-on glimmer glasses, and then I was like, all right, now I can use them like all the time. Yeah, I love glimmer glasses. It's great.
they're good. Yeah, and then uh, Jenna Rocher, she shot the Billie Eilish documentary. I think she was talking about using it too.
Oh yeah, cool.
I think it was her.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's like three of you brought it up, and at least the other two were like, "Oh, I didn't know people knew about that."
That's funny. Yeah, it's probably like they all go in phases, like whatever's popular. But yeah, I mean, like that. It's true. You can just do so much. You really can do so much in post. Like I've I color a fair bit, and like just kind of getting into those kind of things like post filtrations, like other than the biggest one I really feel like I always lean away from is like, like haze or atmosphere. Like I don't feel like I feel like I really see the difference in like smoke filters and like actually having the diffusion fill a room, like
Yeah,
lens diffusion rather than like atmospheric diffusion. But like aside from that, it is crazy what you can do. And sometimes, like I was shooting this horror movie on like vintage Lomo anamorphics that like weren't rehoused and they looked so cool, but it was like just super hard. Like I'm like there's certainly
no
lost
pulling
setups.
focus on those.
Yeah, yeah, and just yeah. Well, we burned out two. Did we do two? Yeah, I think we burned out like two focus gears just because the focus was so tight on him that it just kept like wrecking him, and we'd have to go like swap him at the rental house, and it was just a huge pain, and like it looked really cool, but we sacrificed a lot of setups, and in that case, it kind of worked. We were doing like spending a lot of time on a few setups, but if that wasn't the case, it'd just be way too prohibitive, for what you gain. So yeah,
There
I
was
mean, I do think like like and like there's so many other. I definitely got buddies who are just filter collectors, and like like, and I always think about that, just kind of branching out, just throwing some heavy, cool stuff on some sharper lenses. You definitely have more technical versatility. So I'm not against it at all. Just depends.
I've found myself using, again, more like technical filters, so like contrast filters,
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
just to not truly, but kind of squeeze more dynamic range into the image.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, now with like this, now that I have the C500, like I've got more dynamic range than you could possibly want.
Right. Yeah.
One rig that I just came up with that's kind of funny is, so I got like the C500, and then I got the Pancake 40 millimeter.
Cool.
And then which it just looks like a body cap basically. And then I put anamorphic adapter in front of it, so the whole camera is only a foot long, but it's autofocus anamorphic, sort of.
What? That's wild.
So I kind of want to, like, it's only one. I mean, I could put any other lens on it, but just that small little package. I got to find the right project for that, but it's just one focal length. But it looks goofy.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that sounds really cool though. I'd love to see that.
But with the face tracking, like I can just worry about keeping it steady,
Yeah. So it's that good, huh? It just the
face tracking, yeah. The anamorphic.
I haven't really used autofocus. Yeah, I mean, I've never really used it, but like, it seems like it's just getting to an incredible place.
I'm
a game changer in doc.
For doc for sure. I'm probably like, well, it depends. If I'm shooting the Nikkor Primes, definitely not. But depends on the shoot. Like if it's just like a commercial or something, you can just pick a face and lock onto it, and it won't lose it. So it's like, why bother? If it's perfect, it's perfect. I don't need someone there with a wheel just because that's the proper way, quote unquote proper way to do it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it makes so much, and I can even imagine, not even running gun scenarios, but just in say like a 2-camera interview where you're monitoring one of them, like that's
exactly
a great time to just have more usable time in it, set a little bit shallower focus than you would if you were just going to abandon the camera, that seemed really could be a lot of application for that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Were there any like film influences that you had growing up, or any movies that you really like thought, that's the look I want to go for? And are there any now that you have?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've always like really loved movies, like just always.
You can hope.
Yeah, I just like love watching tons of movies to this day. But I don't know, like as far as influences, probably all over the map. Like my favorite filmmakers like all time are probably like Herzog and Nicholas Roeg, and like I still do, but when I was like younger, I really, really loved Terrence Malick, like more than anything.
Oh, sure.
I probably always wanted to make everything look like him. Probably between him and like Herzog was my biggest, like just trying to make, emulate like looks. And also like I feel like I try to do a lot in everything, like docs and narrative, not really music video, but like is things from like Altman that aren't really necessarily just cinematography, but like, just like trying to get everyone mic'd and shoot on really long lenses, with like the entire world mic'd, like shoot on 200s, just sniping from like different weird angles, and so like things like that, really fun. I don't know. I'd say like different things from different places. I'd say definitely now, especially not like any one thing or filmmaker I'd really like say is like I'm trying to look like or trying to emulate, but probably like just little things from lots of places. Trying to think of other people who really, really like affected me. Lately I've been really, really into Tarkovsky, who I never really watched that much. And I've just been watching like Solaris and Stalker and like all those, like just kind of over and over, just kind of like mining them for just all those like really out there ideas. But I don't know. Like
I had the first episode, technically second, but the first like episode of this podcast was with Josh Richards, who shot Nomadland.
Oh, cool.
And he was talking about how Tarkovsky was one of his like big ones. Yeah, and I had to sit there it's the first podcast, so I'm still like figuring my shit out, but I'm looking at Josh and I'm just like, I have not seen one of that man's films. Like, what the fuck? Like, and I went to film school and everything. So I went and bought, what's it? Ways of Seeing? No, Sculpting in Time. Ways of Seeing is completely different. But yeah, I still haven't, I got a whole bookshelf of just like books I got to fucking read. But
yeah, same. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, podcasts take a lot longer than you think. It's not just the hour of us talking, then got to edit the damn thing and the transcript. Oh boy. Anyway.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's, and like that's what's so cool is, like that's like a filmmaker I've always known of, and I know I saw Solaris a long time ago. For whatever reason, it's like you revisit it and it's just all new and just totally different and just blows your mind, and then you just go down the rabbit hole of like, all right, tonight I'm watching this, tonight I'm watching this, and then same with DPs. Like that's how I find like all these DPs. I mean, I think same as anyone, but like from like a really really small town. In Maine. So it was sort of, in like, early internet, I was born like 84. So it was, all DVD store, record store, finding things out, or friends, and then just kind of reading from there and there and there, and then like, and like finding all those old filmmakers and all the connections, like you find out, like get into Terrence Malick and realize like, Sam Shepard's in Days of Heaven. You've been reading the Sam Shepard play, and then like all these things are connected, and like Nicholas Roeg, like was a DP, and I always think of him as like an editor, or not as an editor, but like his editing techniques, in Walkabout or Don't Look Now. That's what I always think of, like if I was trying to emulate him, it'd be like Nicholas Roeg editing techniques. But then you find out like he started as a DP and like shot like Roger Corman's like favorite directorial. Like Mask of the Red Death, this Edgar Allan Poe adaptation, then like just kind of all these interconnections, all these people you like kind of idolize, and I think especially like when you're in a small town or something, you're just really disconnected from like anywhere where you'd see it or that would be a possibility. It's such a cool like scavenger hunt of like these things that are cool, that like you're like just starting to learn about, and like that kind of never ends too, which is really cool, then you get into Tarkovsky and it's like him sharing Sven Nykvist for Sacrifice, and like taking Bergman's DP and like what they were doing and like how it was shifting. Like it's just so cool, it's such a intricate overlapping of like people who like each other's work, and you wouldn't think they'd work together, but then they do, and it's just incredible in different ways.
Well, it does make I completely agree. I love, especially if you're watching something from someone you like, and then you see that connection. You're like, I really like the cinematography, and the credits roll. Then you see that connection. You're like, oh,
yeah, that person worked with that person. It's like no wonder, like they're like, they're like whatever that common thread is that connects them. Like that's the thread. That's like where I want to live. Like whatever that is.
I think of it in lineages, like things that I enjoy. Not to like toot my own horn because I'm definitely not there, but like to have an idea of like if there's a lineage of this, whatever this vibe is, this feeling, this cinematography, these films, I want to put myself at the end of it and try to like make that a goal,
Yeah, totally.
But it also like, because I also grew up in I was born in San Jose, big city, and then moved to a really small town of 5,000 people. And I think seeing those connections makes a big industry feel smaller.
Yeah.
You can identify with it more when you're like, oh, it is like kind of, not really, but it is kind of like friends still making movies just with more money.
Yeah. It's like, oh, like you were in like this high school band and I was in this high school band, but then like they all like went off and now we form a new band. Like it's like, it makes it like it's the connection of the artists, like kind of like, and like when you see those and like their interest and magnet and like sort of attractions towards each other, like it takes away the like intimidation of like whatever business or, like how difficult it all is.
Well, and for me too, especially like I'm excited. This is going to sound really strange, but you might get what I'm saying. Like I'm excited to get away from corporate like cinematography.
Yeah.
If that makes like, obviously there's corporate work, like, and that's whatever, that's technical. But even just like when people ask to use your creative mind to like sell stuff or hit a target, we need it to look exactly like this. Like those groups of filmmakers together uh, feel like they're kind of left and they're not, obviously, but it feels like they're kind of left to their own devices. And I would like to get to that point.
Yeah, and like whatever budget that is, whatever, like, if that's a single location, doing whatever, whatever the limitations that need to be put, or like parameters that need to be set to make that happen, that's so the place to be. Much better than than just stretch too thin, compromising beyond like what you think's quality, like trying to, I don't know, you get kind of over like swinging for the fences and whiffing, and it's like more like just fucking bunt and then like just whatever, but do it good, and that's more enjoyable a lot of times,
Yeah, it's like the whole we want it lit like this, and we want the whatever teal and orange, and then you just go boop boop boop. All right, roll it.
I do feel like though, like especially like that's actually one thing I really like about cinematography over like kind of other things in film, is that like more than editing or directing or writing or any of the other things I like have interest in, like I like the craft of it is like really enjoyable just in a pure craft sense. So like a corporate video or whatever, like I get really irked sometimes trying to direct something like that, or just trying to invest, like what you're talking about, like investing, like sort of giving yourself away, like a part of yourself to like some corporate thing. But like in cinematography, I don't really care as much because it's always like sort of, it's always like a chance to practice something, it's right. Always like, and like, that's what I love the most about it is like the more craft and art part, even where it's like, like all the best people are like deacons or like, in their 60s and 70s. And like the fact that it's like a lifelong craft. And like the only way to really become a master is to light, 100,000 rooms. There's no shortcut to lighting 100,000 rooms. And like, that's like the coolest thing in the world, I think. And like, so like, in that sense, like I really like it just as a job much more than other things in film, because like I don't really mind, those like practices about like whatever it is, like if there's like this stupid interview or like something I don't like the idea of, it's like, well, I'll try and figure out a way to make it work. And that doesn't whatever damage my artistic ego the way like other positions do. Like I still can kind of enjoy just the craft challenge of it and whatever might come from it.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is like I'm perfectly happy with delivering a product on time and on budget and not thinking too hard about it. You know?
Yeah.
Especially like I've gotten more into color correction, and that's definitely a place where like I have no fucking ego. Like I'll admit, like if I shoot something and someone's like, this looks like ass, I'll be like, well, I thought it looked good. But with coloring, they're like, I don't, this looks wrong for me. And I'm like, all right, tweak, there's no, it doesn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah. I've been getting really, into coloring lately, and I had an old roommate who was a colorist, and learned a lot, and then just DPing through the years, and like, my friends who do that, it is like, it's just such a crazy subjective thing that, it's really tough. Like, I feel like so much of like job of a colorist is like communication and like discerning what the DP and director are like trying to, like, what they're going for without like the, and oftentimes I think like even DPs, especially like just the terminology is just not quite there to like explain what you want in a color, but it is so subjective, like there really is there's so rarely a right or wrong in it, it's just taste, so yeah, it's so interesting. But it's also, it's incredibly like educational to learn coloring, like, really diving into Resolve and spending pandemic kind of learning that. Like, I feel like it's been like really, really changed how I'll approach cinematography in a lot of ways, and also what you can get away with, especially if you're having that amount of control and through post, like if you can get on to color it, then you can kind of know like where you can push things more and more, the more you do it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I'm actually writing an article now for ProVideo Coalition, and it is about how cinematography now, with where digital cameras are and where the sort of data capture of cinematography is, cinematography has 1 foot in production and 1 foot in post-production. So if you're a cinematographer, this is more for people listening who are maybe learning, you're really going to have to figure out the color tools. You don't have to be a master of them necessarily, but you got to know what's going on in post, because you got to know like what you can do with the data you're capturing to, and then ensure that what you wanted to happen is happening. Because the footage can just get taken from you, and it'll look at Zack. I've just used this in the last podcast. Zack Snyder's Justice League looks completely different than Joss Whedon's, and the poor DP's just sitting in the corner like. Oh, neither did I, but I saw a comparison. Oh, dude, it's completely different. No, the Whedon's version looks like a Marvel movie. It's very colorful, very bright, very soft. He did go and reshoot a bunch of stuff, which helped because then he lit it really evenly. Whereas Snyder's version, which I just watched, very dark, very edge lit, very silhouette.
Totally.
And I was looking it up, and the DP was pissed.
Yeah, I actually saw that. Yeah.
He was like Whedon. I think he called the Whedon version like a slaughter. Like it was something brutal where he was just like, that's not what we shot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you put so much work in and then it just gets changed entirely. Yeah. It's rough. I definitely sympathize. That sounds crazy.
Yeah. So I'm encouraging everyone listening, like, sorry, got to add another tool to the kit. Like figure out resolve. I
wholeheartedly agree. And also just like, and like what you learn about like color and like limitations of image capture, and like where you can lean in and where you need to be careful. Like it's just like it really, really changes things, to see like what you can do with that image. It's really amazing.
A big one for me has been.
I feel like that's a thing that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say a big one for me has been relighting. Oh, I think we're lagged up. All right.
Yeah. Relighting in color.
Yeah. So if it's not too hard, you can put fake flags in Resolve.
Right. Yeah. That's like a thing I feel like I've done a tiny bit, but I can't imagine a day where like just like light everything as flat as possible at even exposure and then like do it in post, because I feel like that's where it would cross the realm of I think who was saying there's that Brian De Palma documentary that came out. It was really fun. It was cool, and he was kind of talking about like what he doesn't like about CGI is that there's no room for happy accidents. There's never going to be like it's all preconception and it's just renderings of preconception. Which is what I get real bored with a lot of comic book movies sometimes because of that. But I feel like that would be like the tipping point for me of like I'm not going to, unless I had to because of time, like I can't imagine a time where I wouldn't try to light, at least get the contrast ratio of the subject at the very least and try and do something with the background just to like find the look in the moment rather than in post. I feel like that's kind of like the division as it progresses. Cause I can definitely see that coming where you just light everything flat and then build the lighting and post. But like, I just can't, for that reason, I think I can't imagine wanting to do that because like, you just like, that's when you find the image, is like in the space, and
well, I don't even know if it's
image and post that way. Like,
I don't even know if it's physically possible to just like flatly light something or it'll look really goofy. Yeah. But for me, it's just been like, if I can't kill the spill on the wall, knowing what I can do in Resolve and just go like, I can take that down. We're not.
And that's what's amazing. 100%. Totally. Like knowing you can do stuff like that can just save you like the time that matters, where you get whatever you need to get, and like that, I totally, that's the kind of thing that can just like really change things for you, knowing what you can get away with, like.
Yeah, I guess that's the caveat is knowing what you can get away with and still have it look natural and like be the intent. Not, it's fixing for time. It should be a time thing, not like a creative thing.
Yeah, it's like fixing what you can't do because of time constraints or whatever resource constraints rather than like, like planning on, design it in post,
that would
figure out the look in post. That's where it's just too far. I wouldn't like that.
Well, yeah, I feel like it'd get boring really fast.
Yeah, it'd be boring. Yeah, exactly. Even if it worked, it's just boring. Yeah, totally.
So talk to me about this music video. It's Kelly Clarkson, right?
Yeah, Kelly Clarkson and Jake Hoot.
Yeah. So how'd you get a hold of that kid?
Um, the director Taylor Ballantine, we'd never met or worked together actually, but we crossed over in a lot of different worlds of uh, just different stuff, documentary, and we both shot. She's a great photographer and cinematographer also, and we both shot like Sports Illustrated stuff and Sports Illustrated swimsuit in the past and different things. So we like have a lot of this, just connections, heard about each other. And she just had this video out here, and it was right in the midst of COVID. And then both Jake and Kelly were out here, and somehow they had access to the Wiltern to do this video, but it had to be very constrained, other than Taylor, who came in like a while before, it had to be very local, very small crew. So there was a lot of constraints and a lot of difficulties in it. So we kind of like had to figure that out in pre-production. And I think like our backgrounds and that sort of like she also does doc, like was really helpful in that, because we had to stretch, like very small crew to that. But yeah, that's how that came about. Basically she just, she was directing and hit me up to DP and started working on it.
So talk to me about that pre-production process. What were you trying to avoid? What were you trying to get done? What were the challenges of having the small crew and a location that I'm assuming didn't allow you to use the lights that are built into the set or the stage?
That's one thing. And they were really awesome there. They were so helpful. But, I've been to shows at the Wiltern before, and I've never really done much live stuff, live events. I mean, maybe like, just in a purely camera thing, but not that much. Anyway, I was like we had the use of their house lights and the lighting technicians. So I'm like, oh, maybe we can, get away with mostly this. It's not that much, like bands come in, they bring like their lighting packages, or like, whatever it is, there's not that much stock, in the theater. There's a few spotlights, couple things, but not enough for sure. So a lot of it was, and we only had one walkthrough day. The COVID restrictions were pretty strict at that time. So, it was mainly, the big decision was how to use and show the space with like those extremely limited resources. Like, do we make it look like a closed theater with like a single spot on each of them, and do it like that? And then, try and milk some sort of like bring the lights up at the end. And it was really tough. And sort of the thing we landed on. And then also, gear wise, we didn't have crew resources, budget, anything to really shoot, to light. Well, so basically what we ended up doing was shooting on the Blackmagic Pocket 6Ks at 3200 ISO to sort of stretch our lighting package more than anything else. Because we were only using small lights. We had a 2-man G&E team. And the other thing was, we were moving from the stage to backstage to like up in the balcony. I think we did something like almost 60 setups in like 10 hours. It was just sick. A ton of, it was ridiculous. Yeah. With a very small lighting package that we had to flip, a lot, every other setup or so. So pretty much the only way to get there, given those resources, was actually sort of what we were just talking about, sort of a predetermined post-production hybrid solution of shooting 3200 ISO and then relying on noise cleanup, and Resolve, which is where I got, much more educated in the noise reductions in there. So yeah, and like that, and it wouldn't have been possible otherwise, shooting it at that camera's other, it's a dual ISO, but shooting at 400 ISO, really shooting anything less, it would have been, just had to completely change the approach. And I think any other approach would have been very not what we wanted to do. So yeah, in that sense, like a kind of like that consideration of what you can push and what you can get away with or compensate with in post really made that possible and made it work and happen and really opened my eyes to those possibilities. I've actually shot like a number of things similarly since, short films or whatever, where it's, I've kind of used that, if I don't want to, if I want broad, soft light and, have those restrictions, I'm much less hesitant to, push to 3200 ISO and clean up the noise in post.
Yeah. Were you shooting B-raw or compressed?
Mm-hmm. B-raw, B-raw 3:1 constant compression, and the 6K 2.40, the widescreen mic mode in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you gotten a hold of the Pro yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't tried. It looks great though. I mean, the ND's long, that's huge, and the articulating screen. I mean, those would be my two big wishes for that camera. I love that camera, but those would be my two big requests.
Yeah, so that it really does seem like they just took every complaint. I did a review of that camera, and those were like my three big things. I can't move the screen, and it's dark. I can't. I don't have internal NDs, and there's no what do you call it?
IR.
There's no IR filter. I like how you knew what I meant when I was doing this.
Yeah. Well, that's that'd be my other big one that I would love. I wish was on there, but.
So, but hopefully with the built-in NDs, they're IR NDs. Obviously,
I hope so. I mean, I've got a screw-on one. It's not the end of the world, but it seems like a thing that's not that hard.
Yeah, and the little eyepiece. But So what was the look that you ended up with in the music video kind of just determined by what you had there, or were you modifying it in any way?
As far as like the like character of the color, really we're going for like, bright poppy, fairly saturated, fairly high contrast most of the time. Not necessarily on them, but like subject to background. So yeah, I'd say like most of that was determined like by like, trying to get close to LUTs in the monitor on the day, and then a lot of it was, noise cleanup and adjusting for skin tones and some of those things that are tough in real low light. So yeah, but I'd say like in general, the look we pretty much tried to hit on the day, with their in-camera LUT.
Yeah, the one thing that speaking of monitoring, again going back to looking up Messerschmitt's work, he was saying that monitoring in HDR, not necessarily shooting for HDR display, but just monitoring in HDR lets you see the majority of the sensor's dynamic range. So even more so than monitoring in SDR, in HDR, you can see exactly like, all right, I'm not going to have that, or that's going to blow or whatever like that. So right. I'm interested in trying that at some point.
That's really cool. That's so interesting because I so often do the exact opposite. And a lot of times, especially if I don't have, if I'm just releasing it to post afterwards, I'll monitor in Rec 709 just to, to ensure those limits, ensure like highlights and shadows and just those basic things and color levels like exist well in Rec 709, because I don't, I can only assume that's the space it'll end in, and be colored in and worked on. So a lot of times I'm just doing that. Like, I feel like on things where I do have control over posts, I might try and, build a LUT for the day, or scroll through some LUTs and see what I like, and then go off of that. But then, yeah, it's cool. That's a really cool idea. I think like, if it was like a project where I was involved throughout post, definitely, and through the color, that'd be a really cool thing to do to kind of push things even further, because yeah, I feel like I'm more often protecting towards, either Rec 709 or Rec 2020 or something, something more constrained, so that whoever is, working on in a post, if I'm not involved in the color, isn't dealing with levels that are too far away.
Yeah, that's another thing that I think people don't like. Newer folks don't kind of get into is like designing your own LUT. There's a lot of power in that.
Totally, yeah.
Especially if you can deliver it. If like you monitor for it and then you deliver it to post, and you're just like I know on this one it'll just save the LUT that you're using. Like you can save the LUT to the SD card with all the proxies on it, I think.
Yeah.
Or in the sidecar, I don't fucking know. But I actually did it the opposite way. I've modified the color response in my camera so that just the RE LUT works.
Oh, cool.
I just chuck that on and it
Wow.
looks perfect. So
That's wild. Cool. Yeah. I mean,
pandemic has
yeah, I
been
think it's,
a lot of time on my hands.
yeah, well, I mean, it's a great thing too. And, like also like what more I get into coloring, it's um, uh, like when I was coloring, like up till like this past year where I really got much more into it and into Resolve and stuff, I never really worked with LUTs that much, even coloring or on set, maybe on set even more. But, just kind of especially when I've done it, on bigger projects, just bigger color projects, like it's just the time saving is just huge, like, and yeah, if you can pass those LUTs forward, it's just, I mean, you can just ensure you're getting a lot closer to what you wanted to do, if you're not, if you're not involved in the post process, which, a lot of times you can't be.
Or, and even just like, even if they're not going to use your LUT, just seeing it as a reference.
Right.
This is where I was headed.
Yeah. Whatever you want to do, this is what I had in mind. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, we're coming up on the tail end. Time travels so quickly.
Yeah.
Flat circle.
Great talking to you.
Yeah, no, I
was thinking, oh man, an interview, what am I gonna do? But it's like, oh, just talking cameras and stuff. This is easy.
That's
all I do it all the time anyway.
Dude, that's literally how I started this podcast. I was like, it was pandemic times. I was talking to the people at ProVideo, and I was like, I cannot talk to my girlfriend about cinematography anymore. She fucking hates it.
Yeah.
Like, I need to start talking to other people. I'm just gonna make a podcast.
That's what my wife always says. She's like, "Are you guys talking about numbers again?"
Oh yeah. Two. Which one's the one you like? 228. Cool.
Just random numbers all day.
It is a lot of. It is funny because I think I am not a math person by any means, but you have to learn so much math to be a cinematographer, and then you have to not think about it.
Yeah,
it just has to be instinctual.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so cool. It's a great life without a doubt.
Yeah. But so I like to end each podcast with two questions. One, and I'm going to ask them separately. I've asked them together too many times, and then no one thinks about the second one. First one is, what piece of equipment or life change did you adopt that you think most appreciably affected your work as a filmmaker, or specifically a cinematographer? So that could be equipment, it could be meditation, whatever, something that you think most helps you out.
I'd say, wow. I know this is going to be one of those where I think of something really good in 5 minutes, but I'd say meditation's a good one. That's new for me, but I feel like that's already paying big dividends.
Totally.
Dang, what's a good thing? Probably like, I don't know, sun tracker app's pretty great.
Yep.
That's a big advancement, like I use all the time wherever I am, unless I don't have signal. What else?
A lot of the documentary folks said good shoes.
Oh man, good pants. That's what I'd say. Like, yeah.
The 686 everyday pants.
Yeah.
Are my favorite by far.
Have you ever heard that Adam Carolla rant about cameramen pants? Like, cameramen have
are they all pants? They're all cargo, I assume.
It's actually, you should look it up. It's on YouTube. It's all animated, and he's like, cameraman has pants, and then just goes on how it's all like they just have pants that like you zip off the bottom and then they're shorts, and it's like, it's really, any like cinematographer will die like listening to it. It's very astute. But yeah, I'd say like comfortable clothes, stretching's probably the biggest thing. I'd say that stretching like every morning, every night is like the biggest thing to like not get hurt, like especially if you're doing dogs, you're traveling all the time, you just like on a plane, then jump up and go, and like, and if you're hurt, you're screwed. What are you going to do?
The second I hit like,
probably that.
That's a good one. The second I hit like 28, 29, you just don't, they warn you your entire life, you're not going to be this bouncy. And then one day it's immediate.
Yeah, totally. And but then the good thing is, if you don't, like, I think it's good to like delay your peak, because if you kind of treat your body like crap through your 20s and teens, you're kind of always never feeling that great, you know. But then like you hit that point where you got to start taking care of yourself. You stretch, you better like feel like in a lot of ways better now, you know. So like you delay the peak and delay the peak, and you're always kind of feeling a little better. It's just how you got to nail that crossover.
Tantric flexibility.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. I threw out my back. So I was trying to go to sleep and I couldn't go to sleep. And so I was feeling restless, right? So I like hopped out of bed and I did like a quick stretch, like a 30-second stretch just to kind of, and I don't know what I did, but I tried to like lay on the ground, do like the, you know, and something popped in my lower back. I couldn't walk for like a week.
It's sleeping, man. It's all, I just, although it's quick, but like, I was working on a documentary in Saudi Arabia for like 3 years, on and off, going there a bunch of times. And that's how I always get hurt. And it's always long flights. And it's like the most intense shoot we had, like one of the final day. And I just ripped my neck out, just sleeping. I just like woke up back, never sleep great over there. So like, I'm like, like wrench my neck. And then like the next day, and like I could barely move. And then like we're leaving and like about to go on this 15-hour flight. And I'm like, just like in like seizing pain. It's like, and like, I'm like trying to tell them, they're like, what'd you do? Are you like running or like falling? Like I was sleeping and like twisted weird. Like I can't walk anymore. Someone else shared.
The hotel pillow was too soft for my neck.
Yeah. No one has any sympathy, but it's like seriously like the most often way to get hurt, I feel like, is just sleeping and twisting weird or whatever.
Yeah. So second question, is there any personal projects or anything that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, for sure. I'm currently working on a documentary that I'm directing about maybe a girl who ran for the U.S. House of Representatives for California. So that's we followed her campaign throughout into pandemic. It's pretty interesting. So I'm working on that, which hopefully will be done later this year. Other than that, yeah, that's probably the thing that's maybe hopefully coming out soon. Right. Everything else is probably a ways away.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for spending the hour with me. It was great talking to you.
You too. Thanks so much.
We'll have you back. We're coming up upon the time where reoccurring guests are probably going to be a necessity. So we'll just tack you onto the list.
Cool, man. Anytime.
Right on. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you later.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Later, bud. Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by ProVideo Coalition. Our theme song is written and performed by Mark Pelly, and the F@R Matbox logo was designed by Nate Truax of Truax Branding Company. You can read or watch the podcast you've just heard by going to provideocoalition.com or youtube.com/owlbot, respectively. And as always, thanks for listening.